represent the CEO of KEPSA to deliver the remarks from our sister Carol on behalf of KEPSA. Then, after the opening remarks, we will dive into our agenda of the day. Again, there will be a 10 minutes presentation by global shipping trends and their implication on local regional supply chain competitiveness. That will be done by Mr. Kututa. After that 10 minutes presentation, to set the scene, highlighting the innovation, competitiveness, and sustainability of our industry, then we'll have our panel discussion. We do have excellent panelists with us. And this panel discussion will be moderated by Mr. Gilbert Langata, the CEO of East African Shippers Council. We are also privileged that we have Omar Nyarindi, Executive Secretary for Northern Corridor, Transit Transport Coordination Authority. We'll have Mr. Baji, the Regional Director for Barori Africa Logistics. We do have Mr. Lino, the Secretary General of Uganda Clearing and Forwarding Agents Association. We have our sister, our ambassador in charge of trade and logistics, Dr. Miriam Sebunya, Chairperson, National Logistics Platform from Uganda. Then we'll have an interactive, a very interactive question and answer session where you will be able, all the participants will be able to raise questions. So before I invite our hosts, this is an excellent platform where we are engaging and discussing the issues of maritime transport industry. Because the maritime transport is the anchor of our trade and competitiveness in the region. If we don't get it right, then it will be hard for us to be competitive as we move towards African continental trade, free trade area. We've had some sessions looking at the CFTA, Continental Free Trade Area. But what came out clear that our region is not competitive because of high transport and logistics costs. Unless we address the issues related to infrastructure, both hard and soft infrastructure, then we will not reap the benefits accruing from Continental Free Trade Area. So this breakfast session, which will lead to tomorrow's session of the award session for maritime players, it is really an opportunity for us to have in-depth discussion, candid, engage, and see how we can work together to build back better and ensure that the business and investment in the region flourish. So I'm really excited that this is a very noble platform. And I'm happy when you look at the panelists with us, amidst with us, and our moderator. These are the driver, these are the champion of the region. So let's have this opportunity. Let's be free. Let's use this morning optimally to ensure that really we get a clear recommendation how to work together in terms of driving competitiveness. So with those few remarks, I would like to invite our hosts. Yeah, it's good, when you have a good leader, he advises you and guides you. The chairman said it's always better to have introduction first before we dive into speeches and engagement. So let me request Silva, please hand over the mic to our delegates, our panelists, to introduce themselves first. Let's start with the high table, from the chairman, then to the panelists, then we go to the.
Mic test, mic test, mic test. Can you hear? Thank you. Good morning, everybody. My name is Nick Nesbitt, and I'm Chairman of East African Business Council.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Auni Baiji. I'm the Regional Director for Bolore Transport and Logistics. Thank you.
Okay, good morning, ladies and gentlemen and colleagues and the rest of the stakeholders. My name is Peter Matinde, Head of Terminal Operations, Kenya Ports Authority, standing in for the MD, Ambassador John Wangemi.
Good morning. My name is Marian Sebunya. I'm the Chairman, National Logistics Platform of Uganda under the Private Sector Foundation Uganda.
Good morning. My name is Omai Nyarandi. I had a different name, so I need to clarify. Nyarandi. I'm the Executive Secretary of Northern Corridor Transit and Transport Coordination Authority. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Amos Wangora. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of the Kenya Trade Network Agency.
Good morning. My name is Genesio Mugo, the Chairman of Shippers Council of East Africa.
Morning, everyone. My name is Gilbert Langat, Chief Executive, Shippers Council of Eastern Africa.
Good morning. My name is John Omingo, standing in for the Director General, Kenya Maritime Authority.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Lino Krialichila, and I'm the Secretary General of the Uganda Clearing Industry and Forwarding Association, USIFA.
Good morning. Mohamed Baga, Kenya Transporters Association Director.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Beryl CG, Director, Green Pala.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Peter Mbogwa, General Manager, FCM Travel Solutions. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Jenny Virungi, representing Rwanda Revenue Authority, Customs Department.
Good morning. My name is Julius Mabu, Director for Productive and Services Affairs, Ministry of East African Community, Kenya.
Good morning. My name is Daniel Kiange. I'm the Secretary General, Intergovernmental Standing Committee on Shipping, ISCOS.
Good morning. My name is Dennis Ombok. I'm the CEO for Kenya Transporters Association.
Morning, everyone. I'm Zainab Garyadi, Manager of Mantra Marketing and Travel Limited.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Aziza Sazuri, representing Kenya Maritime Authority.
Morning, everyone. My name is Beth Mauricio, representing DRC.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Philemon Koko, presenting Reliable Pipe Services as manager. Thank you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Hilda Karegia Sirigwa from Kentred.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Ajare Ndero from Chaitod and KTDA. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Salome Wambua, Sunset Travel and Tours and Managing Director.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Martin Karani Kiara, Group CFO, Express Shipping and Logistics, East Africa.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Emmanuel Rico, Branch Manager at Equalbert Kenya.
Good morning. My name is Edwin Dichu, KTA. Above all, Nimini Pastor Nahubiri, I also request, let us pray to start the day. Thank you, Lord Jesus, for giving us a day. We don't take it that we are here. Start with us. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. KTA. Amen.
Good morning. My name is Jean-Baptiste Langevin, Managing Director, CMA-CGM for East Africa.
Morning, everyone. My name is Daniel Sepetu, Deputy General Manager, East Africa for CMA-CGM.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Milan Vasani, SpeedX Logistics Limited.
Good morning, everyone. Mayur Vasani, representing SpeedX Logistics Limited.
Good morning, Sylvester Kututa, Chairman, Express Shipping and Logistics Group and Kenya Ships Agents Association as well. Thank you.
Habari zenu. Toby Otum from Sun Express. I'm a journalist.
Habari zenu. Naitwa Brian Otieno kutoka gazeti ya The Star.
Naitwa Fatma Rajab from Radio Salam.
Yeah, thank you very much for the introduction. Oh.
Good morning. My name is Patrick Maingi. I'm with the Kenya Private Sector Alliance, where I lead PPT, Public-Private Dialogue. Good morning.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Newton Wango, Director One-to-One Logistics, KTA Chairman, and also KEPSA Transport and Infrastructure Vice Chair. Thank you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is George Boyer, the Institute of Logistics and Transport Kenya.
Assalamu alaikum. Peace be upon you for my other colleagues. My name is Captain Panafa, an independent marine and ports expert. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Aziz Mohammed Ramzan, ports and shipping expert.
Good morning, Brian Kaleche, East African Business Council. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. Habari ya asubuhi. My name is Miriam Wakundia. Today I wear two hats. One, Head of Marketing, Kenya Ports Authority, and the second hat is the chairperson for the East Africa Maritime Awards Planning Committee. I look forward to seeing all of you tomorrow at the gala dinner where we get to celebrate the achievers amongst us. Thank you.
Good morning.
I'm Charles Kisewa, Principal Marketing Executive at KPF. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Agnes Mueni from Simped Global Consolidation Company.
Morning, everyone. I'm Jacqueline Maina from Kenya Ports Authority, the Principal Marketing Executive for the transit markets.
Yeah, thank you very much, leader. I appreciate and allow me to recognize and appreciate the role played by Miriam and Brian for making this event a success. They've been working day and night to ensure that today's event and tomorrow's event of the award ceremony, and you can see the diverse stakeholders we have in this room from all industries. Revenue authority, transporters, the leaders in Maritime, our ministries of ESC, we have KEPSA, all the stakeholders are here. So without any further ado, allow me to invite our host to deliver his opening remarks, Mr. Peter. Karibu sana.
Good morning once again. First and foremost, I also wish to take this opportunity to thank God Almighty for keeping us safe for this entire period, right from 2020, when the COVID pandemic struck the world. So God has been gracious to us by His grace that we are alive and we're safe. So we thank Him for that, and also for the kind mercies for those who travel far and wide to ensure that we all congregate here for this occasion to deliberate on matters, logistics, basically the maritime business, and also on matters of regional economic business. So with those opening statements, I take this opportunity, first of all, and to convey the apologies from our Managing Director, Ambassador John Mwangemi, who would have wished to come and attend and participate in this forum. It's very critical for him, but nevertheless, he had some other engagements that are also critical that he could not make it. But because of realizing that this annual event is very important to the industry, he allowed it to continue. That it shouldn't be postponed just for the sake of him attending, but then he ensure that it continues, and we're representing him here. I will now read his speech. Distinguished stakeholders, invited guests, good morning. It is indeed a great pleasure for the East African Business Council, EABC, in collaboration with Kenya Ports Authority, to host such an important breakfast event that brings key stakeholders together to discuss issues concerning our industry. I take this opportunity to welcome you to this breakfast session, which is a precursor to the East Africa Maritime Awards, YAMA 2020 Gala Dinner, that takes place tomorrow at this hotel. Your attendance this early morning is a manifestation of the cooperation that you have continuously accorded the Kenya Ports Authority. It's also a proof of the commitment and goodwill that you have in ensuring that our port and the shipping industry in the region performs to meet customer needs. We thank you all for the efforts. The East Africa Maritime Awards were launched in the year 2018 to take over from the small-scale KPI awards that we used to reorganize stakeholders during our year-end dinners. YAMA has now included the entire East Africa region, recognizing the efforts that stakeholders are putting to improve performance of the port and industry in trade facilitation. Ladies and gentlemen, the stakeholders of the Port of Mombasa have come a long way. You will remember the days when importers and clearing agents would spend long hours at the long room and Central Documentation Office, CDO, to have the Mombasa port release orders stamped 24 times to get cargo released. Agents used to move physically around the terminal to locate their containers. Today, the port has embraced ICT systems, namely the Kilindini Waterfront Terminal Operating System, WATOS, the system's application product, SAP, that allow online clearance process. As we move forward, the dynamism of our industry, which is the main facilitator of global trade, handling over 90% of world merchandise, has kept on encountering many challenges. No sooner the industry recovered from the global economic meltdown of 2008 than a global pandemic struck. That's COVID-19. Coronavirus has disrupted supply chains, brought down economies as manufacturers closed shops due to lockdowns imposed by governments to control the spread of the virus. It's for this and many other reasons that we must sit as stakeholders who deliberate on challenges of the industry with a view to finding common solutions. This forum, therefore, is part of KPA's engagement framework aimed at managing relationships in an action-oriented way to facilitate seamless end-to-end service delivery. Distinguished stakeholders, COVID-19 has brought serious challenges to the shipping industry. Ports of the world have experienced reduced cargo volumes, while some ports had to close operations as many ships were put at anchorage due to drop in demand for cargo. Cruise lines, the 117 billion sterling pounds cruise sector was hit the hardest by COVID-19 to cause a standstill. For example, many cruise liners, including the Carnival Cruise Line, the Norwegian Cruise Line, Holland America Line, suspended their cruise ship operations for at least 30 to 60 days. Effects of COVID-19 on the Port of Mombasa. The Port of Mombasa, like most ports in the world, experienced decline in cargo volumes in the year 2020. During the period January to December 2020, the total cargo throughput recorded was 34.12 million metric tons in 2020 against 34.44 million metric tons in 2019, representing a marginal decline of 0.9%. Container traffic declined by 4.0%, registering 1.360 million TEUs in 2020, compared to 1.417 million TEUs achieved in 2019. Further, the disruption of supply chains also resulted in drop of transshipment traffic by 16.9%. We are, however, pleased to note a positive trajectory during the period January to August 2021, where a total of 23 million metric tons, 889,758 tons of cargo was recorded against 22 million and 75,917 metric tons handled in the corresponding period in 2020. This signified an increase of 1,793,841 tons, representing 8.1% increase. At the peak of the pandemic in 2020, port operations slowed down with lockdowns and night curfews restricting movement of cargo and people. Other effects included COVID-19 associated traffic snarl-ups at the borders in the East African region, leading to poor offtake of cargo from the port. On our part as KPA, we instituted several measures, including enhanced ICT solutions for online documentation payment for charges and cow clearance process to avoid fiscal human conducts. Conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, as I conclude, I wish to assure you that port performance is now picking up. Volumes are rising gradually. Equally important is that the Port of Lamu is currently operational with 6 vessels so far having called. As we speak, our Siko in Istanbul is docking at the Port of Lamu at 1300 hours to continue the operations. And another scheduled call is to come over the weekend to complete the transshipment cycle. We are confident that the port will open up new trade routes and that all of you will enjoy fruits of expanded facilities and by extension increased trade. I look forward to seeing you at the Yama 2020 Gala Dinner tomorrow. Thank you so much and God bless you.
Thank you very much, Peter, for delivering the speech on behalf of the Managing Director. And I think from your presentation and opening remarks, I think we need to applaud our regional stakeholders. The loss that you presented is not as significant as expected. That demonstrates that the stakeholders, yourself, embracing digital instruments, digital tools, was one of the tools to withstand the effect of COVID. And I'm happy that through your presentation, you highlighted that there is a positive outlook. The port is gaining, and that is due to stakeholders' commitment and engagement to drive our region. So allow me now invite Newton Wango, the Director, one-to-one logistics, to deliver the speech by the CEO for KEPSA.
Good morning once again. My name is Newton. I'm AP Chairman and also KEPSA Transport and Sector. I'm here to represent Ms. Carol Karuga, CEO of KEPSA.
She sends her apologies. She could not make it. I'm now reading her speech. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, all protocols observed, good morning. The EAC region and indeed the wider African continent relies heavily on sea for nearly 90% of its cargo trade. However, transportation costs still account for a substantial share of the total production costs due to infrastructural, regulatory, and administrative inefficiencies along the transport corridors. However, Kenya is among the countries that have made remarkable progress in reforming its transport and logistics sector. These include investment into expansion of the ports, including the new Lamu Port, road, and rail infrastructure, the signing of the Mombasa Port Community Charter to enhance efficiency at the port, improvement in customs procedures, including the KRA Green Channel, ongoing rollout of integrated customs management system, launch of the Maritime single window system, reduction of agencies at the port to adjust to 4, among others. Over the period of 2013 to 2019, cargo traffic at the port of Mombasa has increased from about 22 million tons to 34.4 million tons and may reach over 50 million by 2030. This represents an opportunity to continue improving efficiency and removing the barriers to facilitate trade and improved competitiveness across the region. We are happy to come together as private sector under EABC to engage with the EAC Secretariat
the Ministry of EAC, and all relevant state agencies to share insights and solutions to the challenges we face trading in the region. Some of our proposals include: 1, fast-tracking finalization of the comprehensive review of the EAC CET with a view to promote even application of CET value addition, industrialization of the regional value chains in the EAC, national consensus on the brand structure, that is harmonization position between industry and government, is crucial, and also for private sector through peer-to-peer engagement. Number 2, fast-track enactment of the NTB's elimination bill and engage the EAC counterparts for agreement on the contentious clauses. For businesses, there is also need for sensitization to ensure prompt reporting of new and recurring NTBs through the NTB National Monitoring Committee for Redress. Prioritize establishment of trade and related dispute settlement mechanism through establishment of EAC Committee on Trade Remedies. However, this requires ratification of amendment of the EAC Customs Union Protocol by all partner states. Ratification and possible review of the EAC agreement for the avoidance of double taxation and prevention of fiscal evasion with respect to taxes on income. The agreement will eliminate tax distortions by removing double taxation. With the current evolving business environment, a comprehensive review of the EAC Customs Management Act 2004 is also necessary to ensure new realities and needs are put into consideration. 5, to address delays in clearance of trucks at the borders due to inadequate testing kits and reagents at the border points, lack of SOPs for truck drivers, and lack of mutual recognition of COVID-19 certificates. We propose engagement of the EAC counterparts in development of harmonized regional revenue authority systems and engage the private sector in development of SOPs for truck drivers. With respect to exports, delays have been reported at the border points due to lack of scanners, verification, and short working hours. The border should be well equipped with scanners to be operational 24/7. On documentation, the system has become more difficult with the number of documents increasing to the same number of containers. For example, consignment of 20 containers of export tea requires 21 customs declaration to process. That is 1 E100, E100, and 20 E112s for each container. Previously, 1 E100 declaration would suffice. This takes up more resources and time. The opportunity is to reconfigure the ICMS and the declaration module to accept multiple containers on one declaration. 7, still on C. Following the memorandum between KRA and the East Africa Tea Trade Association, the 90-day transit period was relaxed for transit tea due to the issue of auctions at Mombasa and blending of teas for export. Unfortunately, the matter has now unilaterally changed with the bond management section insisting that consignments beyond 90 days must be penalized. Customs must abide by the transit tea MOU signed with stakeholders in order to promote the growth of the industry and uphold the Mombasa tea position as the globally preferred auction center. 8, certificate of exports, that is COEs. When trucks carrying transit goods across the border, it is expected that officers will input the information into the system and the COE generated automatically. Unfortunately, when bond cancellation vouchers are submitted at the KRA headquarters, the documents are rejected because there are no COEs in the system. 9, COEs at ICBN is complicated when those seeking the COEs are informed of the COEs from the port of exit. The responsibility or onus of obtaining the COE should not be placed on the importer or exporter. Information must be obtained from the systems. Also, no VAT refund of bond cancellation process should be held back because of lack of. Then, the processing time to import transactions by ensuring compliance with the circular issued on 4 June 2015 by the head of civil service that reduced the number of agencies operating at the port's entry while appointing lead border agencies in their areas of specialization. Other agencies such as PPB, KEFIS, and Port Health are now lodging holds through the system, which affects turnaround time. Others include prioritizing construction of roadside stations for truck drivers along the transport corridors. In 2016, the Northern Corridor Transit and Transport Coordination Authority had done some of the need of constructing roadside stations along the Northern Corridor. This is crucial not only to road safety, but through DPPs. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Newton. And thanks for giving us the targets, the new targets for the port from 34 million to 50, 2030. But again, you ably highlighted some of the challenges that are impeding the increment in terms of the port outputs, both on the imports as well as exports. The issues of NTBs, the issues of documentation, cumbersome documentation, the issues of infrastructure, digital-related infrastructure, especially on the side of KRA, the T-auction requirement, certificate of exports, the delays in the VAT refund. I'm happy amidst us, we have a number of stakeholders from revenue. During the discussion time, they will highlight some of the solutions. And I'm happy that the region is on the right track in terms of addressing these trade facilitation challenges. Again, this stakeholders engagement is very critical. It's very critical in the sense that once we join efforts together, we'll reduce time, we'll reduce costs, we'll improve efficiency, and we'll remain competitive. We can't be competitive those 11 points you ably highlighted that are still hindering and impeding the free flow of goods across our region. So we look forward from this engagement that Northern Corridor has to be taking the lead in terms of competitiveness, both on the infrastructure side and both on in terms of volume. Again, I agree with you. Yesterday I was in the session with organized by the French embassy. One of the players in the logistics industry presented statistics and highlighted that Northern Corridor is still very expensive to do business within our region. And he highlighted that the cost of logistics is very high in comparison to other regions. So I think the tools and the balls in our hands as stakeholders, we can find appropriate solution. I'm happy now with our chairman, the captain and the champion of the integration in the ESC is going to deliver the remarks and give us solutions. How best can we tackle those challenges, make ESC a competitive region in terms of trade and investment? Let me now invite Nick Nesbitt, the chairman of East African Business Council, to deliver his opening remarks and respond to some of those challenges highlighted. Chair.
Thank you, Bwana. Thank you, Bwana ED. Good morning. I'm Jambo Wote. Good to be here. And as we said earlier this morning, so many of us have not been anywhere. I don't know if I should cover my mask. It's so hot. I'll just stand here and we can do some infrared sanitizing. But it's so good to travel and see people. You know, you can only go so far with Zoom. After a while, you even get tired because you're doing Zoom, you're doing email, you're making coffee, you're putting it on mute, you're saying, I can't hear you. And we're not getting that much quality content or discussion. But I think today we're ready to have a really good discussion after this, Mr. Langat, right? So we look forward to that, and I know all of the presenters are going to be here and ready. So I just want to say a few things, but first of all, let me recognize the presence of our distinguished guests from Kenya Ports Authority, from Kentrade, from Revenue Authority, Maritime Authority, Shippers Council, KEPSA. Let me recognize people from the Northern Corridor Transit and Transportation Corridor, our leaders in logistics from the different companies, Uganda Clearing and Forwarding Agents Association, the National Logistics Platform, and many others, and many other delegates. So thank you for coming. For those of you who traveled from Uganda, Karibu. For those who, I think, from even DRC, welcome. So today I'd like to also just acknowledge the hard work that's been done in preparing for the big event tomorrow. And of course, the invitation is for everybody to attend tomorrow's gala dinner. And I look forward to hearing the results of the winners of that at that event. At that event, the purpose is to appreciate and recognize the exceptional contribution by industry players. It's also to recognize and appreciate and encourage innovation, especially the creativity and the strict adherence to industry regulation standards, and also to encourage healthy competition among regional industry players. So, ladies and gentlemen, you know, my role as chairman of East African Business Council has been really to focus on how do we get our countries to promote trade? How do we get the countries to really ensure that we can generate wealth? That we can ensure that the livelihoods of the business people and the people who work for them or benefit from them can all improve. Up until a few months ago, I was the chairman of KEPSA, and I did that for 4 years, and we had the same agenda. The same agenda was to try and improve business. And let me say, it is tough. It is really tough when you're in these advocacy roles, pushing for private sector enhancement. Because when you meet with government, not anybody here in this room, of course, when you meet with the other people that did not come to the room today, it's very tough. Because even when you're pushing, they really want to know, well, what's in it for you? And then also, well, what's in it for me if I do this thing? And when you're playing a role for East Africa or for Kenya, you can't even think about those things. You have to think about what is in it for the region. So I appreciate everybody coming here from far and wide to talk about what it is for the region. What is in it for the region? This morning I had a conversation with a business person who leads a very large food company in Kenya. And they were asking, so what are you doing there? And I said, well, we're really trying to improve logistics and trying to improve the port and things can come in. And they were very skeptical. And they were feeling, even though they're a very wealthy person, they were feeling about that big because they felt that they had no voice. And what I was saying is, I will be your voice. I will be your champion. And I think there are very many people in these 5, 6 countries of ours who feel the same way. So the work that we're doing here is very important. So I encourage everybody, when you're speaking or asking questions, to ask the difficult questions and try and give the tough answers. And if you cannot answer properly, don't make it up. Just say, I'll get back to you, and have some integrity and get back to them. Because this is serious. And I think if something bad happened to this room, you look at the brain power in this room, I think Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, all of our countries would be in serious trouble because nothing would move. Look, we got the head of the port. Every single container on this northern corridor is touched by and approved by our friend Peter. So thank you for praying for us, and we also pray for you that you have the wisdom every morning and every night. I know your job's 24/7, but we all appreciate everything that you do. And your team, thank you, thank you. So let me now read a speech. It's about 35 pages, but we'll take a break halfway. I won't do it all. And since the writing is very small, I borrowed glasses. I don't know, some of you wear glasses all the time, some of us not when there's a camera. But anyway, so the East African Community Treaty actually provides for and expects cooperation between the partner states to ensure that it's easy to do business. That's what this treaty is really about. But it's not happening to the degree that it should. It's good, don't get me wrong, but it's not happening to the degree that it should, so what are we going to do about it? And as it provided for in the treaty that established the EAC, Articles 93 to 94, partner states shall promote cooperation among their port authorities in the management and operations of their ports and maritime transport to facilitate the efficient movement of traffic between their territories. Further, and to go a little more granular in the treaty, partner states shall agree to charge the same tariffs on goods transported within the community and apply the same rules and regulations on inland waterway transport among themselves without discrimination. So what that's saying is the treaty accounts for and expects cooperation between the ports and expects cooperation in particular between the countries and expects people to do their best. And as we just recognized the Kenya ports, I'm sure we can also recognize the other ports that people are doing their best with what they have. So today we're going to be talking about, well, what can we do that's even better? We know that the port of Dar es Salaam is growing. We know the Kenya port is growing despite COVID. We can see Lamu, we're doing transshipments, and all of that is moving. But in addition to the maritime opportunities in East Africa, the recent notable achievements in the sector have been manifested, and they've been manifested through reduction of some of the cargo dwell times at the ports. We've improved our investment and attention on Lake Victoria with the Lake Victoria Basin Commission, and also the development of the Protocol for Sustainable Development of the Lake Victoria Basin. And we're also preparing the Inland Waterways Transport Agreement, and we're increasing the capacity of national maritime institutions. Nevertheless, despite the numerous initiatives provided in the EAC Treaty and the anticipated full implementation of the Common Market Protocols, aiming at streamlining and facilitating the flow of goods and services across the region, trade continues to be seriously hampered by unharmonized policies in the EAC region across all spheres of the sector. And the trade is hampered because of many of the local challenges that negatively affect this coordination. Physically, we have congestion and delays at the seaports, underutilization of our waterways, namely Lake Victoria and Lake Tanganyika, inadequate berthing facilities at ports, inadequate storage facilities, and inadequate intermodal transport systems. Procedurally, we have complex freight clearance procedures, and we have challenges in some cases with some of the technical issues, despite the digitization and a lot of the training. And from a safety and emergency response standpoint, we lack the Maritime Search and Rescue Coordination Center for Inland Lakes and regional systems for preparedness. And in my speech, I also say that we even have some challenges from threats from piracy and terrorism. And for those of you who are up early reading the Business Daily, I think Kenya has been taken off the list as a region of terrorism and piracy on the ocean. So I think that's a good thing. It sounds like a good thing, but let's see what happens going forward. These regional challenges, when coupled with current global disruptions occasioned by COVID-19, have significantly reduced the volume of inter-EAC trade and investment, as we know, which really remains a shame given the major role an efficient and well-regulated maritime transport sector plays in influencing trade and investment patterns in any given custom territory. In addition to these local challenges, unfortunately, we're also victims of the global challenges. For example, we know that there's this global crisis in the ports driven by the lack of cargo containers. And there's a domino effect that's been happening. During the pandemic, Chinese ports were closed. Many shipping lines cancelled shipping routes. We've seen an increase from e-commerce, online shopping and imported goods. We've seen border restrictions, distancing requirements, factory closures, all have wreaked havoc on the supply chain. The Suez Canal blockage a few months ago added to this. But at the same time, it's not really a problem about the lack of containers. It is, but the production of containers has reached an all-time high, and they're expected to produce well over 5.5 million 20-foot equivalents this year. Ships are running over 97%. We have shipping lines here who can comment on that. But it seems like the challenge is the ships can't get into the ports and out of them and get processed fast enough, leading to record level queues. Last month, there were over 350 container ships stuck waiting outside ports around the world. So, this problem is not necessarily because of the shortage of containers, but I think it's really because of container dislocation. Containers are all in the wrong places. So we need to focus on a few things. We need to handle our cargo faster. The pandemic had highlighted the need for greater coordination, information exchange, and digitization throughout the supply chain. I think we need to really invest in digitizing the data that underpins the cargo to enable the tracking of containers, apply artificial intelligence, and to help resolve these problems. I think there's largely a lack of knowledge, a lack of information, a lack of awareness that is creating these inefficiencies. For us here, we really need to recognize cargo that is tracked, cargo that has been pre-cleared, so we can have faster processing. In other words, the pre-clearance lanes for cargo from trusted shippers whose cargo is being tracked digitally, these programs should go through and ensure the containers go through faster, these so-called green channels. Of course, these channels have already been created and arguably are in place, but I'm sure there's more to be done to ensure that the benefits are widely realized. In terms of the containers and better utilization, 75% of the containers from the US to Asia are going back empty. That's because they make so much money going to the United States, they would rather just ship them back empty. What about the containers that leave East Africa? Is it going to be any better? As a country, and what we push in KEPSA, what we push in EABC, is that we really need to promote exports. Yesterday, I was visited by somebody from Egypt, and they were telling me the investments that President Sisi is making in the country, really promoting exports. So if you export something, you get a rebate on what you have done. If you ship, you get a rebate on your shipping. So that's led to lots of issues, sometimes negative, but a lot of positive things for Egypt. For Kenya, we import everything. We aren't shipping as much as we would like. We see mangoes are now going to Pakistan, finally. That's very good. But there's more we can do. There's more we can do with avocados. I think the largest mango farm I hear is about 140 acres in Kenya. The mango farms in some of these other countries who have really focused on it are thousands of hectares. In Peru, which did not used to ship avocados several years ago to a large scale, you can see avocado plantations that are larger than the Kericho Sotique tea plantations. They're really focused on it. We have all of this land. We have all of this semi-arid but still arable land. If you were in Spain or some of these other countries, Australia, you could grow things. So as a country, as a region, we really need to focus heavily on agriculture and what we can do to export. And that, of course, will help with what we are trying to do in this part of the world in shipping. So we need to increase the productivity, quality to drive foreign demand, and we need to integrate our supply chains to the foreign buyers. What I mean by that, for many of the people in agriculture, many of the people who are exporting, for many of them, when I speak to them, and when I was at KEPSA, you got to hear from them, their work stopped at Jomo Kenyatta Airport or at Kilindini. It's gone. But when you hear from the people in Peru, the people in Colombia, the people in Egypt, they own the supply chain from farm to fork. And there are one or two companies in Kenya that are starting to do that, where you're owning the distributor all the way down to owning the shelf space in the supermarket. So we as business people here need to really take that initiative. I was recently in Brussels, I was in France a few months before that with His Excellency, and we had a chance to talk to business people over there. And what they were asking was, why is it that we read about the Kenya products, but we never see Kenyans in our country selling them? So the president got very kali with his, just call it local diplomats. Really saying, you guys should be the business people. You should be the advocates. You should be the people going around and knocking on Sainsbury's, Tesco, who knows what in Italy and France and Belgium, and sucking in the Kenyan products. The Egyptian man that I was speaking to yesterday was saying how great Italian coffee was, and he was the importer of specialized Italian coffee that he's selling in the Ritz-Carlton, Four Seasons, high-end Marriott, huge margins, but not as much volume, but it gave him an opportunity to sell other products. And I asked him, does Italy grow coffee? And he said, no, I guess it doesn't. It must come from somewhere. Maybe it's Kenyan coffee. So what are we getting as Kenya farmers? What are you getting if you're an Italian guy who puts a nice label and you've got a nice rotary and you put some Italian and English? So, you know, many people here are in the logistics business. But for those of you in the business, or even for some of you in the logistics business, partner with people who can help. You can symbiotically have a relationship and get in there to the other countries and increase our brands. My favorite one when it comes to the coffee and the tea is English tea. There are a few experimental bushes somewhere in England, English tea, but everybody knows English tea everywhere. So it's not necessarily about where your products are grown or mined. It is where you add value. And what we do in this country is we export things that are of low value and we allow other people over there to add value, and then we bring it in and we pay far more. It's almost backwards. We should import things of low value, make them high value, and ship them out to the rest of the world. Kwani, what do those people in Italy and Dubai have that we don't have? Right? So as a country, as a region, that's the kind of thinking we need to have. Not just how do we bring things in a lot more efficiently. But we must bring in things efficiently, even if they're high value, of course. And we also need to improve and innovate the financial processes that release credit to exporters, such as digitizing letters of credit. What we're talking about with the Egyptians is creating a corridor between Kenya and Egypt, an experimental corridor where the letters of credit are digitized, the manifest is digitized, everything is digitized between the two of us. There's a bank in Kenya that will pay Kenyans once the product is shipped. There's a bank in Egypt that will pay Egyptians once the product is shipped, and vice versa. So you're not really sending money and SWIFT and so on. You have a blockchain-based platform that you're shipping and receiving on, and the local banks and the people providing maritime insurance can actually see that the container has left and it's gone, which means you can actually start earning your credit, earning your payment faster. And once the inspection authorities have said that this product has left the port and it meets the standards, you can actually get paid, or at least get 80 to 90% of your payment. So that's a corridor that's going to be enabled, hopefully before the end of the year, maybe early next year. So watch out for that. And if that one works, we're going to do it with many other countries as well. We are, of course, well, this is long, man. My friend. You know, they say if you want to know the answer to any problem, just open a dictionary, open a self-help book, open almost anything. Close your eyes, put your finger there. Whatever that word is, that's your answer. So I might have to do that. All right. But nevertheless, let me finish here quickly. So we need to upgrade our infrastructure end to end to handle more capacity. We're thankful for LAMU. And of course, I haven't been there yet. I hope to go there soon. We fully expect that is being digitized for 2021, 2022. And we'll certainly hope that there is efficient movement and tracking of containers, and especially as we have these big transshipments coming in. So for East Africa, you know, some longer, bigger picture items, we need the regional governments to work together. There's a Council of Ministers meeting that is happening, and we need them to really recognize this cooperation. We should not necessarily be competing that much against the other countries in the region, but we need to be cooperating. The Maritime Council plays a very vital role in revitalizing and promoting trade, and we urge them to take a larger view of the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. We need to continue to improve the existing infrastructure to connect this region with the Arab Gulf states and regional blocks in Western, Southern, and Northern and Central Africa, as I mentioned. And we need an integrated maritime safety and security strategy, which of course will help with our fisheries and enhance control of natural resources offshore. And we need to review the high insurance premiums on ships transiting through the regional maritime domain. And for the ships, of course, we're seeing the cost of the ships going up dramatically. You know, when I was reading the literature before I came here about what's happening in shipping, we're seeing that ships that used to cost less than $10 million a few years ago, just 3-4 years ago, now cost $19, $20 million 2 years ago. Now they're going up to $20, $23 million. The cost per day to rent a ship has gone from a few thousand to $10,000 to $15,000. So I don't know what the incentive will be from the shipping line companies to start to reduce the rates, especially those who have bought ships recently at high prices. Not to put my good friend JB on the spot here, but I'm not sure where the shipping lines are. But we need to have alignment on reducing the cost of shipping. And I think for us in East Africa, we need to focus on the things that we can control. And I think what we can control is information. And the more we can put information into the hands of the authorities making decisions, the operations people handling them, and the customers and the people supporting them, the better we will be. So I think one of my key messages from all of this, besides collaboration and cooperation, is digitization and focusing on digitization. I didn't mention that my background before this was IBM computers, so where I was the head of IBM for 7-8 years. And of course there, everything is about digital, digital, digital. So in conclusion here, given the issues highlighted above, the East African Business Council is happy and proud to partner in this high-level private sector roundtable with the Kenya Ports Authority, and to offer a platform for leaders in the maritime industries and CEOs from the region to share practical insights and solutions on the barriers to transport and logistics across the region. During this roundtable, the EABC and the East African community expect to receive from the private sector their expectations and recommendations on policy priorities that would facilitate cargo movement across the region. These policy priorities and reforms are meant to improve the business environment by reducing the cost of doing business and improving the competitiveness of stakeholders in the maritime industry, which will ultimately enable the private sector to take full advantage of the benefits presented by the EAC integration process. So with these few remarks, I wish to thank you all for making time to attend this very important roundtable, and I look forward to your contributions in shaping the future of the maritime sector in our region. Asanteni sana. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair. And thanks for summarizing certain 5 pages into 2 pages. So I think really the key takeaway from the chairman remarks is that we need to embrace digital platforms, digital infrastructure, if we are to improve efficiency. We also highlighted the issues of value addition. 70% of our cargo, of our container goes back empty. So we need to boost our export in the region. We should not only improve infrastructure for imports, but we should also have exports. And our exports, we need to add value. So coordination, collaboration is essential. Is essential for us to harness the potential of our regional resources. So it's really very important that we continue to engage, deepen this collaboration and engagement. So I want to thank the chair for those strong and encouraging remarks. And now I would like to invite Sylvester Kututa just to make a quick presentation highlighting the trends of global shipping lines, the challenges as well as opportunities that would enhance our regional supply chain.
Please make it short and sweet. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And good morning. Thank you, Chairman, Nesbit, and everybody, all protocols observed. I will really stick to the time. Thank you, Brian. And for that reason, then I will use my timer, although it's very difficult when you talk about passionate matters as shipping, which is where most of my life I have spent. I would have loved to have a whole day, but I will shorten it again and be able to cover within about 15 minutes. Good. Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm thankful for this opportunity to the Almighty God and also for inviting me to be able to speak and give some insights on what is happening in the shipping industry. What are we observing? What are we seeing? And what do we think together will be the impacts as we move on? We know that we are coming from a time pre-pandemic where everything was calm. There was a calm before the storm. But now, here we are. And therefore, we will start from there. Thank you. And there is indeed a very strong connection between business and shipping and logistics. Shipping being a part of the logistics chain. So we will try and bring out that relationship quite clearly. But I have a small summary of what we are going to do. As they do that, I want to appreciate everyone, especially Chairman, East African Business Council, Kenya Ports Authority, KMA, Shippers Council, and everybody else who is listening. So thank you. We are ready to go, ladies and gentlemen. So we are going to look at a quick introduction and say, what is the relationship between business and shipping being a part of logistics, and the global trends. What are we observing? What are we seeing? What are we hearing from a perspective of where we are? And the effects on regional business environment. You are in business, either you're a manufacturer, importer, exporter, clearing agent, shipping agent. What do we feel that is happening? And a few suggestions at the end of the day will help us to move forward. So, not working. Yeah, so as I said, we are going to look at that, but I need to move forward to the next one. Yes, if you look at those brands, most of whom you know very well, Amazon, Apple, let's say Alibaba, Nike, all these brands ride on logistics, and that is the importance of what logistics is. From being a manufacturer, unless you're able to get your goods to the right place at the right time, at the right cost, you cannot make it in this kind of business. Look at even brands like Singapore, built around logistics and supply chain. Look at Dubai. And my friend, I have a friend who used to advise the government of Dubai, a Kenyan guy, Issa Baluch. He used to advise the government of Dubai on how to become what it is today. He's one of the brainchild, and he's a logistics guy. And he keeps on telling me that logistics is the key of everything that we need to do if we want to be a good and vibrant economist as a region. So we move on to the global trends. And there's a question first and foremost. We know for sure that almost every 15 to 20 years, the shipping industry goes through a cycle. You can look at it from history, the Suez Canal. It may not be human induced, but it is always the fact that there is always something that comes up and disrupts the shipping industry. One of them is the Suez Canal when it was blocked during the war between Israel and the Arab countries and in the Arab Gulf. So today, we also see 15 years since the last high market. Now we are here today with another high market. The Baltic Dry Index is the barometer in shipping. If you go to the doctor, you want to see how well or not well you are, the first thing is you go into the triage. They look at your blood pressure, they look at a couple of other things. In the shipping industry, when we look at the market, we look at the Baltic Dry Index. Please go back. Baltic Dry Index, which tells us how the market is moving. Look at that. From here, 2020, we have a sharp increase until where we are today and still rising, but you can see a little bit of that dithering. And to observe this, the bulk sector is mainly the side of the shipping market that handles fertilizers, steels, grains, and etc. This, most of the time in Mombasa, is carried on Supramax and Ultramax vessels of around 60,000 tons. The rate of hiring that ship, Chairman Nesbitt was talking about, look at that. About 2019 was 6,000. Today, 40,000. Get an example. I didn't feel this so that we can look at it together. The freight rate from, take a sample of Egypt to Mombasa was around $10 around the same time. Today, we are talking about $30 per metric ton. Threefold increase will come to, we can move. So on the container side, we have the Clarkson's index, which also you will see how the sharp increase has gone. This again is for 1,700 TEU ships, etc. You can see how they come. In Mombasa, our ships are around here, 2,000 mostly, unless it's feeder vessels are around here. But look at this. Generally, we are observing the trend and not necessarily the numbers for now because of time. We can dig deep and talk about it in other forums, but for now, let's just look at the trend and the graph. So there is a sharp increase in the cost of the ships themselves, the time charter, hiring a ship a day, and also the prices, the cost of shipping goods. So we've made a case already that the shipping market is on an upward trend. The cost of shipping is on a rise. So is the cost of commodities. I need to add that if you're an importer, if you're buying anything globally, commodity prices are up. Commodity market will tell you that. And therefore, the CFR prices are very high when you're importing, when you're exporting. And I think one of the beneficiaries of this is probably the revenue authorities. Let's keep that quietly. They calculate their taxes, import taxes on CFR prices. What is causing these increases in freight rates, in asset prices, in time charter, which converts to higher imports and export costs? I think my colleagues have already alluded into this, that there is massive and unprecedented port congestion around the world. As at the day before yesterday, in the port of Long Beach in California, 75 ships waiting to berth. These are not the small ships, they are transatlantic, trans-Pacific ships, 20,000 TEU ships. Therefore, you can imagine how much one ship, in terms of capacity, in terms of the supply side of the shipping market, one ship takes away. And therefore, you have that number and 20,000 containers held on that particular ships and 20,000 equivalent waiting to be loaded on that particular ship as empty containers to return them to the loading areas. It's a crisis. It's a crisis. It's mostly port congestion generated. So can you go back a little bit? And then we have excessive COVID-19 driven demand for shipping. How is that? We expected that there will be less demand because there are not much of activity. We can go deeper into analysis of that, but I'll give you one example. I am an American middle-class person. COVID-19 strikes. I'm used to going to McDonald's every day. I don't have anything in my home. I don't have a microwave. I don't have a place, even a workstation. I don't have anything to cook with, even a spoon, because I take McDonald's, I go to work, I come through McDonald's or KFC, and I go back to work. Lockdown happens, and I go home and I find I have nothing. So I begin ordering online, microwave, all these things. So consumer goods, all these things are being ordered in massive numbers from China. In the meantime, China is locked. But then this excessive demand is the one which is causing a lot of problems in Europe and in the US. Massive ordering. So demand has been excessive in times of COVID. So I talked about 74 ships. Is that the number I gave? 74 ships waiting as at September 10th. Massive. Thank you. We thank God that right now in our ports in East Africa, most of East Africa, we don't have any congestion. Ships are going straight to berth. And that's a good thing, not what we were and what we were doing around January. So once again, the fuel prices are rising. Bunkers being the fuel prices consumed by ships, you can see also they are on an increase. Next. So other market drivers which are local is that, and Chairman mentioned it very clearly, that we do have a lot of ballast voyages, both for container containers being shipped empty out of East African ports because we don't have exports. If we don't have exports, we have no much of these containers, the freight rates have to be costed one way. In the same way, even for the ships, if a ship is coming to East Africa and we know that most of the time, other than base titanium, there is no other place we are loading bulk. It's only base titanium, once or 2 times a month. So if we have exports of bulk, exports of containerized cargo, our freight rates, our cost of importing, our cost of exporting will go down, which brings me to the economist in me. We need to look at economies of scale in whatever we do, because that is what will drive our costs lower. If we are able to ship more, even in containers, we have economies of scale in the ports, which means deeper draft, faster discharging, moves per hour, all of them lined up to economies of scale. Then we will reduce massively the cost of importation and exportation. We will be playing in the region of 20,000 ton ships, 20,000 TEU ships, and so on. It goes without saying, then the bigger the ships, the faster the discharge, the faster the container comes back, the more the benefit we get. On container side, empty repositioning costs. But I want to talk a little bit about that. When COVID happened, and with all this, with all what has been happening, we are seeing traffic beginning to change. And I think I'm getting ahead of myself. Sorry, because at that point is in the next. Repositioning costs are a killer in the business. No, any shipping line wants it, and not even anybody in terms of imports and exports. So we need to work towards making sure that our economies turn into export economies. And Chairman spoke about it. The next slide. So I have a few questions as I come closer to completion, because as I say, I will condense my presentation because of time. What is this the last pandemic? We've seen the effect of the pandemic. We are still ruining from the effects. Freight rates are high. It is not the shipping line that are causing the freight rates to be high. We've seen it's congestion in the ports. So, but what do we do? How well prepared are we for the next pandemic if it's going to persist, or this one is going to persist, or another one will come? And with that, the shipping cycles. Will we be able to import consumer goods and raw materials if there's another pandemic? China was closed down for some time. If we're depending on imports, especially of the critical goods and critical goods, if, for example, China is locked down for 2-3 months, what will happen to us? There we are seeing a change in the need for us to also manufacture and bolster and develop a very vibrant industrial base for ourselves. What is the general state of globalization right now? Where globalization says you do produce in the areas and the countries where you have less costs, and then you ship it in mass. China becomes the manufacturing hub of the world, and then everybody else imports. What happens if that area, if that China is closed down, if they are not able, like they did? China, the biggest ports were closed down for almost 2 weeks, about 2 weeks ago. So again, that's a massive problem. This congestion is also moved to China, by the way. At the moment, there's a big congestion in China. A few hard questions, and you may say suggestions. Is local manufacturing becoming more competitive than imports? What happens when imports, the imported goods become expensive because of all these factors we've talked about? Commodity prices are higher, CFR prices are higher. What do you do when you sit as East Africa? What discussions do we have? And one of them is this: let's think about local manufacturing, and local manufacturing also not only for ourselves, but for exports. But in that local manufacturing, it will not be competitive unless we have critical masses. And critical masses comes from looking at things from an East African community and African region. If we are not going to sort out some of these issues of economies of scale and connectivity and transport network and being able to move goods within East Africa cheaper, then we're entering into the African continental free trade area unprepared and uncompetitive. But we can change this. We can change this. So look at places like DRC, which should be a big player in these ports. Infrastructure, Kenya, connecting DRC into the region. We talked about Lamu. How do we connect Lamu with the Central African states so that they can also use Lamu? What about internal? We've seen that there is massive increase in border crossing, traffic. The other day I was reading Namanga has increased 6 times in terms of traffic that's going between Kenya and Tanzania. That's a very good thing. East Africa is trading with East Africa. Are we prepared for it? Because we've seen massive queues of trucks. Talking about software and the speed of making sure that even the containers are not stuck at the borders. So we need to rally and ramp up regional manufacturing. This is the time, but we need to look more and more into more economies of scale, producing for the African continent, but being connected to the African continent very well. So the process of border logistics, I already mentioned that we are not doing very well. If a truck is spending 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, then we are not doing so well. Ideally, if you ask me, my opinion, 30 minutes we can do. We can do 30 minutes. That will help a lot in our competitiveness. Yeah, I think because of time, the rest I have alluded to. We see the next one, and that will be my thank you to you. I hope I live to the expectations of short and sweet. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sylvester. Economists love numbers. So we want to translate those numbers into efficiency for our transport corridors. But thank you so much. A round of applause for Sylvester. I think the burning questions that you have and the engagements, we are going to do them right away. We're going to begin our panel session right about now. So the moderator will be Mr. Gilbert Langat. I know you are all aware of him. So I would like to welcome Mr. Gilbert Langat, the CEO of Shippers Council, Eastern Africa, just to set the scene as we prepare the stage so that we can have our panel discussion right away. So karibu sana bwana CEO.
Morning, everyone. Before we set off, for introduction, my name is Gilbert Langat, as you've heard, from the Shippers Council of Eastern Africa. With us today, we have a panel of experts. We must thank the East African Business Council. I want to observe all protocols for this meeting. And as I moderate this session, I also want to recognize the presence of a number of people, representatives from KPA, East African Business Council, KEPSA, I want to recognize the presence of our chair for the Shippers Council, Bwana Jenesho Mugo, is here. Auni Baiji is a board member of the Shippers Council also, so we are very well supported by the Shippers Council here. Amos Wangora from Kentrade, we do know a lot of issues have been talked about innovation going forward. How do we use technology to implement this? But also, I'm humbled to, at this point, to recognize our panelists, starting with Dr. Marian. Marian Sabunya, I think is someone who I've known for very long. As I stand here today, I was trained by Marian from when I went into the industry. We've done a lot with them. Marian is the chairperson, currently the chairperson of the National Logistics Platform in Uganda. She has played a major role in the reforms that we've seen in the freight forwarding and logistics sector, both at regional level in Uganda. At regional level, she's been a member of the board of EMEC. She's been a member, vice president of FIAFA. FIAFA is the Federation of Eastern African Freight Forwarders. We work together towards implementation of the current training program that is happening for freight forwarding industry. That is actually level at looking at professionalizing the industry. So we have people who have shown commitment in this area in terms of ensuring that we move to the next level. Even as we have these discussions, what are we doing as a region to make it productive and attractive for our region to be attractive for these investments? We also have Bwana Nyarandi Omai. Nyarandi is an expert in this field. He has had long experience in the logistics sector. He's worked with APA, is now the executive secretary at the Northern Corridor, and we've seen a lot happening in the corridor. As our presentation was going on about the trends in maritime, I kept asking myself, does maritime stop at the port? Because the notes that we have, where we have the linkage between the ports and the international waters, is at the port. But how do we get to the hinterland or our landlocked countries? We stop calling them landlocked. So the person who facilitates that at the moment is the Northern Corridor for Kenya, Uganda, Rwanda, Burundi, DRC, South Sudan. And also we have the Central Corridor that links to the port of Dar es Salaam. And therefore, the importance of the corridors that we have and the institutions that run these corridors in terms of ensuring that we have efficiency in our corridors is important for all of us. So we have Bwana Nyarandi who will be taking us through this. Then we also have from the Ugandan Freight Forwarders Association. These are the users of our systems. We are the ones who, they are the ones who actually ensure that our cargo is facilitated to move from our ports into our service infrastructure into the regions that we work along. So Mr. Lino, who comes from USIFA, which is the Ugandan Freight Forwarders Association, will actually be talking to us with a wide range of experience. He's sat in a lot of these institutes that we work with for a long time. We work with them in terms of ensuring that we have our infrastructure responding to the needs of our stakeholders. Then we have Bwana Auni. I think all of us know Bwana Auni. Auni has been in this for very long, many years. He works for a multi-faceted institution that has representation. It's actually a multi-model institution, Bolloré, and we will gain from his experience, very many years experience in facilitating trade. He's been in the engagements, in the freight forwarding, in transport, in rail, in sea, So he has a lot of understanding and he'll be able to cast us a lot of information in terms of what are the policy reforms. And he's also been very active with the private sector. His chair has been a chair of the governance for logistics and transport for KEPSA, which is the Kenya private sector. He sat in that for very long, led us for a very long period of time. He also chairs the logistics committee, which is actually the committee that runs the activities related to transport and logistics within the Shippers Council. So we have a wide range of experts this morning. But we have all of you to contribute to this discussion. So I look forward to a very productive discussion. And even as we do this, what are the policy, the challenges, what are the policy decisions, what are the policy proposals that are going to come out of this that we can be able to progress to a relevant institution in government, and also the other policy makers that we deal with, and what are those responsive issues that we are going to be concerned about. We have a pandemic with us. Costs have gone up. We've been given a demonstration that the costs of our basic infrastructure, costs of doing business are going up. We have costs going up in terms of sugar, and these are global trends. How are we going to ensure that we are more efficient, that we reduce the cost for our local infrastructure, our local logistics to be able to help us to become more and more attractive going forward? So with that, I would like to invite the panelists to come forward so that we can be able to start the engagement. I'll start off with where the problem starts. The problem, we have been told where our issues are, where our opportunities are, where our challenges are within the shipping and maritime sector. How do we move from there into the region in terms of how do we get our cargo moving from our ports into where the trade happens, which is the hinterland. Remember, our ports serve customers who are more than 500 kilometers away from the north, which is at the port. So to start off with the panel discussions, we'll start off with Pana Nyarandi, who will take us through his understanding. Please, can I have all the panelists in front? Pana Nyarandi, Marian, Pana Auni, Guido. Karibuni sana, welcome, thank you. Now, to start off, we need to move from the port to where your customers are. And I think the best person to start off is before I take a seat and I invite Pana Nyarandi to take us through, could you please help us? Because we've seen the sector having had a lot of challenges that have come through what is happening, especially in the global perspective. But for us to survive, we must have an effective corridor. An effective corridor that works towards efficiency and reduction of costs. What are the challenges that we are facing as a transport and logistics sector in terms of the corridors that we have in the region in moving the cargo? And as we do this, what are those quick wins in terms of policy that the Northern Corridor or the corridor management authorities are doing for us to ensure that we address these issues at the shortest time possible? Karibu. Yes.
Thank you, Bwana Langat. I'm glad to be in these familiar grounds where I see several faces that we have worked with and interacted with before. As we have heard, my name is Omai Nyarandi. The moderator has done some of my work because he happens to be one of my board members. Corridors. In East Africa, we have mainly two corridors, which are major, which is the Northern Corridor, starting from the port of Mombasa, going all the way to Kisangani in DRC, passing through Uganda, going to Burundi, Rwanda, and South Sudan. We have also the Central Corridor, which starts from the port of Dar es Salaam and it connects to Uganda, Burundi, Rwanda, and the DRC. You can see that the Northern Corridor covers 6 countries, which includes one of the members who is not in EAC, who is DRC. Corridors link the port to the hinterland, and they are in different modes. Could be road, could be railway, could be the inland waterways, and includes infrastructure such as ICDs, one-stop border posts, and others. Now, generally, currently, as you have seen, there's a symbiotic relationship between the port and the corridors because we evacuate cargo to the hinterland. Currently, there are various challenges, and especially starting from last year. Over the past 5 years also, you've seen a lot of gains in terms of technology, use of technology. You've seen gains even in transport costs coming down to destinations. But for the past 1 year also, there have been various challenges. You've seen, despite the fact that we've even moved, even created Naivasha, which is supposed to be closer to the hinterland countries, the transport costs have gone high. These challenges, including challenges that were brought by COVID. You recall when COVID came calling, countries had different policies and procedures to deal with cargo, despite the fact that it was declared an essential service. So which are some of the challenges? We've had a lot of traffic jams. We've had a lot of issues to do with the infrastructure. When you look at one of the things we do at Northern Corridor is that we look and monitor performance along the corridor. And the performance is in terms of cost, in terms of volume, in terms of the infrastructure facilities. Transit time has increased very much. You've had issues to do where now containers and the empty containers are coming back after a longer period. ICT challenges still exist. You will agree with me that despite the tremendous efforts that we have made in this region, still when you go to the port, it takes around 4 or 5 hours for a truck to turn around. And that's in terms of time. If you cost that time and the stoppages along the corridor, still the exit time between the border posts, despite the fact that we have made infrastructure in terms of stop border posts, which are very magnificent, we still take a lot of time to cross the border. Yes, we have made a lot of ICT improvement in terms of even during COVID. Now you are able to register online, get online, and be able to move. Still, some of those issues remain. Issues to do with the policies among our countries in terms of protectionist practices, such as cabotage, still exist. Non-harmonized road user charges between EAC, Kenya and Uganda could be using COMESA, while Tanzania is using different. We have issues to do with when you cross through Taveta to Uganda, if you want to access Rwanda, or you want to access Burundi, we still have issues to do with geofencing. So because of that, most of our transporters and the shippers are not using that route, which would be shorter than the traditional corridor. Looking at all the issues and how we can be able to sort this out, and I'm glad that some of the speakers here have spoken about harnessing the issue of ICT. How can we all embrace ICT, including single customs territory for countries like South Sudan? Recently, we had issues for more than 2 weeks where South Sudan, you are aware some 2 drivers from Kenya were killed, and there was a strike along the border for 2 weeks. If you quantify that in terms of costs to the final importer, it's quite huge. Some of us who deal with such corridor matters had 2 weeks sleepless nights. We've had to know each and every minister who deals with security, who deals with foreign affairs in South Sudan. And you can imagine when you are engaging such high diplomat, and he tells you that Kenya, Uganda is harboring rebels. What we do is, as a corridor, we try to engage diplomatically to ensure that such issues are tackled, but it's expensive to the final consumer. If the corridors are competitive in terms of movement, in terms of such issues of security, in terms of better roads, one of the issues is that countries have different priorities in terms of infrastructure. So you will find that currently we are dealing with a case, for those who know Western Kenya, there's a station called Wahaha, where Uganda, with our engagement, they have been able to make a road to that border station, which can be a third exit to if you say Malaba, Busia, and have Luagaga. But Kenya has not been able to do it, to have a road connection to that. We are having engagement. We have meetings with Kenya next week. We've done a study on it and shown that it will improve transit time if we are able to do that particular infrastructure and be able to use proper use of our border stations. And some of our stakeholders also include not only the road sector, Kenya Revenue Authorities, Uganda Revenue Authorities, private sector, all of us, if we are able to work as one unit, we can be able to make our corridors more efficient and reduce the costs. For your information, in this region, you might find that the costs along the corridor are nearly twice what we have in the developed countries. We have made a lot of progress, but we still need to do much more. And it's all of us as stakeholders in all the sectors to come together and do that. Our policy organs are the ministries of transport in all the respective 6 member countries. That's the same with Central Corridor. So we have PSS sitting on our board. Now we have, for the past 2 years, we have started bringing private sector to sit with us in our boards, to be able to bring all together, to be able to make better and informed decisions. So some of the decisions we'll make from here today will be great benefit to us so that we work together to make not only our ports, because we need to decongest them and move cargo to their destination, but also to make sure that we reduce the cost of doing business in this region. I'll be willing to listen and offer solutions in this meeting. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Bwana Nyarandi.
It's true. The place of efficiency lies around automation. And as we then engage, I would like to know from the sector players, Manaoni, having had you are a seasoned player in the industry that is a company that is multifaceted. You do a lot in this sector. What has been the place of your experience in terms of embracing e-commerce, use of technology in terms of doing business operations in the logistics sector? And even as we do this, what are those issues, global issues that we are facing that affect our turnaround? And of course, increase the cost of doing business in our region. You can respond from where you are so that at least we have a discussion from here.
Yeah, thank you, Gilbert. So I think I'll start first with the issue of the costs and what is going in terms of moving cargo through the region and how over the next few years we can actually try and see how we can minimize or eliminate some of the costs. So the biggest issue, of course, today, and we all know, is the price of fuel. This is a worldwide trend, and the only thing I think that can happen here is the government looks into ways to either reduce the tax element, because 40% of the cost or what you pay at the pump is taxed in taxes. The next one is the pandemic. Now we have to treat this as a norm. I think Marian here will talk more about that, so I'll leave that for now. The third major issue that we have, and it's been touched on, is the issue of the intervention of the revenue authorities. And in this case, it's unfortunate though, we had KRA being one of the sponsors, but I don't see anybody from KRA. Anybody from KRA, by the way, here? I wish they were here. Okay, so I would have said a lot more, but since they're not here, we will bring them up in some other forums. But Newton actually touched on the major issues that we have going on, and those really are a huge element of cost within what and how we move cargo around. Of course, the infrastructure development that has been going on, mainly we talk about the SGR, and hopefully next month the link into Uganda with the MGR. We are hoping that it actually translates to a cost reduction, because generally, like with the SGR to Nairobi, we didn't find the cost saving for moving cargo from here to the hinterland. When Naivasha opened up, and we were actually the first ones who did the first full train into Naivasha. It was unfortunate that the railways did not play their part in maintaining the level of rate or provide the equipment that we needed for Naivasha to become successful. And this I meant was, Sylvester mentioned the issue of exports as well. Now it could only be good if we could do both, that is import into Naivasha and export back from Naivasha. Unfortunately, that was not possible because there was no weigh bridge, no scanner in Naivasha, so we couldn't bring exports back into Naivasha. That led to a whole logistics nightmare of actually moving import through Naivasha and bringing containers back into Mombasa. So for any trucking company, there is a leg Nairobi to Naivasha which is blank, and that's absolutely not the way it works. The recent hike everybody talked about the issues of costs going up. Anyway, this is my personal belief. JB, we have to meet after this meeting, but maybe you have some view on it. Personally, I think by around mid next year, they should not be at the level at which we are at today. And it is all due to supply and demand and all that we talked about, congestions and availability, lack of equipment, etc., etc. So hopefully this is not a 3-5 year term cost increase. The other matter that we had with we have in terms of costs is the cost of bonds. For those of us in our industry who execute bonds, know that from the beginning of this year, the Insurance Regulatory Authority put up a standard fee on bonds of 2.5%, whereas most of us were paying between 1/4 to 0.5%. We are now having to pay 2.5%, and for moving cargo across with that kind of situation, where your cost is already 5 times more than what it was last year, is a heavy thing to carry with you. So there's one more issue is in terms of costs coming through is the decarbonization of the shipping industry. The aim is to reduce the shipping emissions by 50% by 2050. Obviously, this will not come cheap, and we will definitely see that when freight rates come in, there will be more and more of this emission requirements. We had the issue of sulfur content in fuel last year, or I think beginning of last year, and that led to some increase in cost as well. However, we see that the competition in ports is going to grow. We are all enthusiastic about Lamu, but we have to make sure that we are going to remain competitive, because in terms of Lamu being a transshipment port, we are going to compete with Djibouti, with Berbera. Berbera, as you know, DP World has gone in and invested a lot of money there. Of course, there's Mombasa, Dar es Salaam, Tanga. There is a big move to invest greatly in Tanga. Mogadishu, Mtwara, again, there's a big investment coming into Mtwara. And then, of course, we have the traditional ones like Salala and Djibouti, which are very well structured, ready to handle tranship and cargo. So we have to be careful with our investments into those regions. So what are we doing, or what should we do as a private sector to be able to try and contain some of these costs coming through? So with the revenue authorities, we need a seamless and paperless environment. The systems have to be structured to accommodate the changing dynamics. I think for those who are using ICMS today, you'll see there are a lot of things you cannot do within the system, and it's becoming greatly inhibiting in some parts of it, because it's a fairly robust system which is not easy to amend when you come across hitches of what they may not have foreseen. The issue of bonds I mentioned, of course, there are 2 ways: is to be able to get the ones who are on preferred status, as in Uganda, or those AEO companies in Kenya, to have a different way of moving their cargo which they are handling, maybe even going to a zero bond situation. The other one, and Chair Nesbitt touched on it, is blockchain technology, which is totally decentralized, open source, peer-to-peer software, and it manages all transactions virtually. This is growing today. I know at least 2 shipping lines who have adopted it. And I hope more of us as freight forwarders and logistics companies should also look into that. And while we do look into that, there is the other element of security in cyber. So you know there are cyber risks. When technology opens up the doors, but then there are also emerging threats and vulnerability due to you opening up. Finance, Chair also mentioned, we need cheaper access to finance. This will enable us to strengthen our supply chain infrastructure. And of course, finally, is efficiencies, use of equipment, which is non-fossil fueled, hybrid, electric, economies of scale was also mentioned, automation. All of those should be able to at least maintain a certain structure of cost element in what we do today. On your second question regarding the issue of e-commerce, it's very interesting. Again, the first issue I think we have, the first impediment rather we have is the revenue authorities, them recognizing how e-commerce works, I think their view or their involvement or their way of looking at it is not as we do. They look at it as a leakage of tax. But they should remember that by 2030, the narrative is that Africa will be a top-placed investment destination. So there will be need for advanced logistics systems that can embrace e-commerce. I think this is not fine coming, and they should know it, we should know it as well. So, as I mentioned, what is the biggest issue holding back e-commerce is the national address systems, all right? So what happens if the national address systems are not handshaking each other? These companies have to rely on a fairly lengthy process with the many encumbrances that you get from the time that you start your online purchase or your online work on that. So last year, World Bank Logistics Performance placed South Africa, Kenya, Rwanda, and Ivory Coast as the top 4 best performing countries in Africa. And whilst the effects of COVID-19 disrupted the logistics chain greatly, I think we still need to know that we need to keep at the top and make rather the region, and not only Kenya as such, as the best performing. We need a best performing region and not only the country as such. So what do we do at Bolloré actually? Maybe I should point down into that. Is we use technology running a well-established system. We use machine learning actually. And we have this machine learning technology. Okay, it's based on GPS-enabled delivery apps. It's called very appropriately Link. So it links everything, the coordinates collected in the first registration and delivery. They're used in making the platform for future shipments. So we have other companies, those who might have followed a little bit of e-commerce, Jumia, Astral Aviation. In Rwanda, you have the company called Zipline. I think somebody mentioned Sylvester, it was Alibaba, Amazon. All these companies are more and more into this kind of thing. So old school freight forwarders, which I think some of us still are, who still book things by email or on phone, I'm afraid there'll be no part for us to continue this in the e-commerce integrated supply chain, where you press a button on the computer and it goes all the way through. We will be losers if we don't adapt into e-commerce. So again, it's a big problem for our average freight forwarder, shipping agent, and so on. And they all have to start thinking, how do you manage to get into a bit of this action? Thank you, Gilbert.
Sorry, thank you. Thank you, Aoni. I think the place for automation and modernizing our systems going forward is there. We learn a lot from those who have taken a lead. Bolore, I think, has taken a lead. And it would be important to actually have some of these examples that are set in some of these companies being used to also train the others to actually inculcate this kind of culture, even for the small freight forwarders who are in this business. And because of the pandemic, COVID has changed the way of doing things. And a lot of us who are used to doing things, normally we passed around papers, we went around, business was moving very well, transporters were moving cargo from one point to another. Then the pandemic came, and it came with new challenges. So this has affected adversely the maritime sector in terms of movement of cargo from our ports into the hinterland. And of course, reduction of volumes in terms of what comes north and south from the cargo that comes through. So there has been a significant reduction on this cargo. From the freight forwarding sector, and I'm talking with a lead, being the Secretary General of Freight Forwarding, Representative Yusufa in Uganda. And Uganda is a major player in the corridor, both for the central and central corridor and the northern corridor. You move a lot of cargo across the region. What is it that we've learned from these? What are the challenges that we faced in terms of what has been happening? And even as we do this as private sector, what are those areas that we think, because we attract investments. We've talked about when you look at the kind of investments that are being done, whether it's on logistics, whether it's on systems, whether even in our infrastructure, we attract a lot of international investors who come in. What is the role of private sector? What is in it for us as private sector? Where is it that we can come in to do investment in these sectors that we have, so that we also feed into the investment opportunities that are there in the logistics sector, logistics and transport sector?
Thank you very much. First of all, I wanted to correct the introduction. I am from USIFA, not OFA. OFA is another sister association where my sister Marian was formerly the chair. So I'm from USIFA, the Uganda Clearing Industry and Forwarding Association. And of course, the other responsibilities I also hold by virtue of that mandate. I chair the Uganda National Monitoring Committee on NTVs, and also I'm a member of the regional committees for the EAC, for COMESA, and the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. And then, of course, I'm also a co-chair for the Uganda National Committee on Trade Facilitation. And then our first speaker talked about the corridors. I belong to both technical committees of these corridors. And I'm also a board member of the Uganda Warehouse Receipt System Authority. So maybe I would first speak from this presentation about the infrastructure, because it's really key to the movement of cargo. And the two corridors, I would love to see that they don't work as competitors, but as complementing each other. Because in these meetings, they all have good ideas, but sometimes that element comes in there. But when we work as a team, and that's the spirit of the EAC, we need to work as a family of the EAC. And that will help on in the investment of the infrastructure. When we look at the incentives we have, which were given to us, you have like the single customs territory, the directs, the one-stop border posts. All these are in line up with the World Trade Organization, that is the Trade Facilitation Agreement, which basically is providing for the expedition of the movement and release and clearance of goods, including transit goods. So the main objective is really to do simplification, modernization, standardization, and harmonization of doing things. And you're asking that how helpful and supportive are these to the private sector, to the movement of cargo, and to government. They basically live to these tenants. The purpose of these initiatives helps to ease the movement of cargo. Because now we are able to use the single customs territory to make a single declaration. We use a single bond. We declare from one spot. At the one-stop border post, we do what we call joint clearance and joint verification. And this is the work of doing things. It reduces the cost of doing business. We have harmonized the documentation. We have harmonized the processes and also procedures. And this reduces eventually the total cost of doing business. And in this particular aspect, I thank the revenue authorities. Maybe the one present here can pass our message to the other revenue authorities of being the front soldiers in bringing about these initiatives, which all, both government and private agencies should follow, because they're doing it as a team, and that's what should be done.
I agree.
Yeah. So we need that. The other thing, of course, we look at is once we reduce the cost, we reduce the turnaround, you find even the transporters benefit because they're able to make more trips, more turnaround. And then, of course, it helps in the planning. We are able to deliver and meet the expectations of our clients. Either it means meeting contracts or delivering goods in time. And of course, this reduces also disparity and then a misunderstanding, because now we have standards. We have the ESC standards which we follow. So that's really very important. The other aspect, if I may take them one by one, on the proposed policies. On regulations, on the trade relations in the region, more responsive to business. I would suggest that my colleague talked about customs bonds. With now all these things were put in place, we do monitor through the cargo tracking system, the cargo, we use one document. So we would propose as a matter of policy. Either we remove these bonds or we reduce the cost of the bonds. Because with all these things in place, why do we still have bonds or why do we still have expensive bonds? And this will reduce the cost of doing business. And of course, the other key thing, which is really a thorn in trade, is the non-tariff barriers. We also need to have a practical insight to see that non-tariff barriers are reduced. We are having a problem of delivery, because like we said, the marine operations don't stop at the port. We have to deliver these goods all the way to either Uganda, Rwanda, Sudan, or Congo. We are currently having a problem of insecurity. And I think maybe the best way is to have a regional force for safety of cargo in the region, so that where there are dark spots, this regional force would work than when we try to rely on individual personal states and things don't improve. The other area I was looking at is the consolidation and the respect of the integration agenda. The integration protocol is very clear and very good, but the partner states are not living up to the expectations of this integration agenda. So that's why sometimes we get the issue of NTBs. We have issues of disputes coming up because we're not following up the provisions of the protocol. And then, of course, as a policy also, we propose addressing the aspect of taxation on logistics, equipment, say like products, the level of taxation, anything to do with the logistics. Either we exempt certain taxes or reduce them. So that makes it easier to lower the cost of doing business. And of course, when you look at our industry of clearing and forwarding, we are unique in a way that, first of all, we're agents for the importers and exporters. But at the same time, we're agents of the revenue authorities because they appoint us as their agents. So we are agents of both, which is not a usual thing with other operators. You are an agent defending this one against the other, but we work for both. We have a hiccup of licensing, which you do annually, at least for the case of Uganda. We would propose as a policy that this would be made maybe in 3 years' time, because every time we have to do the renewing of the license, it's a cost and a tedious procedures. Other issues can be sorted by compliance measures, which is an ongoing process. So that would be one key area to look at. And it has already been mentioned, the East African Customs Management Act, the Common External Tariff. This needs amendment because now there are evolving situations which need to be looked at, and we need to make amendments to these acts, including the laws, especially when it comes to penalties. Some penalties are too harsh to reality of business. What it means is that when these penalties are imposed, you are driving people out of business. And yet business should be all inclusive, but work out means and measures of working together for the development of our countries. Lastly, the issue of disputes. There are a lot of disputes which have been coming up and taking place. The causes. One, we have already mentioned, lack of compliance with the treaty. Number two is we're having partner states clinging to the national interest against the regional interest. So this as a priority should be addressed. We need to speak as one nation. We are now a family, and we should relax this more emphasis on the national against the regional. There is the element of protectionism, protecting the national industries. It's one of the big causes. Then there is also the disrespect of bilateral, regional, and committee resolutions. Because sometimes we say, let's address when there are disputes. We do a bilateral, or go through committees, or have regional propositions. And resolutions are made. And we have done this in the NTB committees, but you find they're never implemented. And of course, that becomes a big problem. And then lack of effective enforcement mechanism. So what needs to be done finally to resolve? One, I've already talked about the regional integration, which needs the deliberate effort to follow the provisions. Then we need the fast tracking the enactment of the trade remedies committees. We did the amendment of the NTB Act. There are just two pending issues. But on the part of enforcement is the Trade Remedies Act, which is supposed to enforce. And this should be fast tracked. And this will help us what? To eliminate the NTBs. Then, of course, we need to respect the dialogues initiatives and the resolutions that we make. And like we say, knowledge is power. The operator, the trade, the clearing and freight forwarding agents, the transporters and drivers need to be trained so that we have professionalism in the industry. And then lastly, the last leg of our marine operations, we have the Republic of South Sudan, which has just joined the EAC, but they are not yet fully following the dictates of the EAC. So we need, as a matter of policy, to see how we bring our brothers into line so that we operate at the same level. And of course, now the DRC has applied to join. It should be fast-tracked because we're having a lot of problems when we deliver goods to DRC. We have sometimes goods are damaged, there are a lot of barriers, and sometimes we have containers delaying to come back, or sometimes don't come at all. So basically, that's what I would say in the interest of time. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, panel. I think you really you've given us a very clear understanding of the issues that are affecting us in the transport and logistics sector in the region, but not just that, you also given us solutions and where the problem areas are. And I think this is a challenge to us as leaders in the private sector and also public sector, EABC. I think this discussion around commitments in the protocol on what we are supposed to do as at various levels of governments and even at private sector, what is it that we need to do to ensure that we do our part to ensure that these protocols are observed and also ensure that we become more and more efficient. Even as we talk about this, one of the bigger issues that we are all facing at the moment is the impact of the pandemic. We've learned a lot. We've done a lot of reforms. We've done market consolidation. We have signed protocols, but we never expected that the pandemic would happen and would affect the way we are doing business. So to Dr. Sabunya, you've been in this industry for very long. You have had a lot of interactions in the industry, both at national, regional, and even international level, and you've seen the changes that have been happening. You've been part and parcel of the changes that have been happening. And one of the things that we've always pushed for was integration of our markets in terms of EAC, MOMBASA. Now we have the continental free trade area, which opens up a wider market for us as private sector. Are we ready for that market? And even as we do that, has the industry in terms of trade and logistics prepared itself to the benefits and even the challenges that will come with this? And what are the interventions that are required in terms of policy to enable the EAC private sector to partake into the benefits that are coming from this?
Thank you. If you ask, like you have done, whether we are ready, first of all, as a sector, and then as a private sector is EAC. In my view, the sector is not ready. And whether the private sector is ready as a whole, but for two reasons. I hope you can hear me with the mask. Our pet words, you know them. If they are not tariff barriers, they are physical barriers. It's always the same story. So in my opinion, I think we are not ready because we have non-physical barriers, and then we have, most importantly, the physical barriers, the connectivity. How connected is the continent? Interconnectivity between countries. How connected are we? I see, in my opinion, we are not there yet. The roads, the rail, most important in this area. I think if we are talking continent, we would be talking rail. And if rail is not there, what are we talking? Trucks. What is the energy of trucks to go across the continent and do meaningful business across the continent? The second one, why I think we are not ready is, of course, the non-physical barriers, the non-tariff barriers. When we have talked non-tariff for a long time, sometimes we change to physical, then we change. We keep interchanging words, but meaning the same thing. But what are barriers? Barriers, when we talk barriers, it's very negative. Whether they are called physical or non-tariff or tariff, they are barriers. Why do we have barriers? So the non-tariff barriers are self-created. We create them ourselves. First of all, to be ready as EAC to trade with the rest of Africa, we need to trade with ourselves first. What is the level of intra-EAC trade today? I think it's up, if I'm not wrong, 12%. If we have gone far, maybe we have reached 15%. So if we are not trading with each other in East Africa, how are we going to trade with the rest of Africa? Even as EAC, we are still talking, even the simplest thing, okay, we don't have roads to connect Africa. We don't have rail, which is the most appropriate in this case. But even the air that's available, we are still looking within EAC for, and for many years, for, you are calling them free open skies. We are still struggling within East Africa. So when we open up, because we will also be opening up to the rest of Africa, are we ready for them to come and, like the old adage goes, charity begins at home. So in my opinion, we need to work first, perfect our act within EAC before we get excited to move to the continent. And in that regard, for us as the private sector and the transport and logistics sector, we have done what we can. And Mr. Langat is a living testimony to how prepared as the private sector of transport and logistics. First of all, we started with professionalism. And in that regard, we developed a curriculum. We have trained, we had a critical mass that we needed for East Africa. We trained, and I think we have attained that critical mass. After training them, we certify them, we register them, and the last leg of that professionalism is self-regulation. We are seeking to be self-regulating as an industry, freight forwarding, customs agent, and in that regard, together with East African community, we have developed regional model bill for the Act, and it was adopted at ESC level, Council of Ministers, and then they sent it to each country to customize and come up with a law that will regulate us, the freight forwarders and the customs agents. And there, for us, we know we are ready to compete because we have professionalized. We have given we have equipped our members with what they need to be competitive as a service deliverers in the continent. So we, the private sector, are ready. The second thing we have done was develop public-private dialogue with our key stakeholders, including ministries. ESC, we have signed at the region, we have signed a collaboration memorandum of understanding with East African community as freight forwarders and customs agents. We have gone to our countries, Uganda. The National Logistics Platform I chair is the one that is a pilot of public-private dialogue, and the first industry to have a structured, formalized public-private dialogue is the freight forwarding and customs agents, the transport and logistics sector. We have signed with the Ministry of Transport, we have signed with the Ministry of Trade. By regulation, we are under Ministry of Finance, including the Revenue Authority. So I believe it has happened in the other countries because the freight forwarders, we never think of ourselves as a country because we are crisscrossing the whole region. So whatever we do in one country, we replicate in the other countries. So I think what the private sector, Mr. Langat, what the private sector can do, it has been done. We are confident, we are ready. We are looking at the public sector to do their part. And in that regard, the questions I would put to the public sector is, do you look at the private sector as your customer, and therefore, do you want them to remain in business and grow their businesses so that you can reap where you sow, not to reap where you don't sow? What do you do to support the private sector to grow their volumes? For example, KPA, to grow your volumes. When we grow our volumes, then you get more business. If you don't make sure we keep going, are you growing yourself or you are retarding yourself in the process? So that holistic picture is what we need to do on the part of the public sector, to view us as you are because we are. If we are not healthy, then you cannot be healthy. So I think that's my take to the my guidance to the public sector, but also the public-private dialogue, well structured and formalized, not by invitation only, here, there, after nothing. How do we relate in a structured way and in a structured way, but also formalized is where I'll be going. And the last one is we talk about foreign direct investment all the time. Also the public, again to the public sector. When will we talk direct domestic investment, how do we grow it? Why do we sit back and think negatively? You know, we've said that we stopped calling countries like Uganda, we stopped calling ourselves landlocked. We called ourselves land linked because we don't want to be negative. We are linked, we are not, locked. So now when we keep thinking the domestic investment is not enough and it cannot work and it will not grow, and we are going out of our way to invite the foreign direct investment, have we asked ourselves, how can we grow in the circumstances? COVID has taught us a lot, that one we will talk about another time maybe, but we have learned, like in Uganda now we are promoting, our president is running all over the place talking about import substitution. It's not only import, it's all the trade, it's all the production. How can we, EABC, you have a challenge, Mr. Chairman, how do we grow domestic investment? What are we going to do about that? Yeah, that will be my last one.
Thank you, Dr. Marian. You can see the passion she talks about, and I'm beneficiary of her mentorship in terms of looking at the region, not just looking at the individual countries that we run. Before we proceed, I would like to invite comments. There's a lot of there are a lot of experts within the room. We would like to invite some comments before we go into closing remarks from each of them. The issues that have been discussed in terms of what are we doing as East Africa to trade between ourselves, what are we doing to facilitate transport and logistics within our region so that it becomes more and more efficient. What are we doing to reduce the tariff and non-tariff barriers that affect trade, affect movement of cargo within the region, that's increasing the cost of doing business, but also in terms of our global competitiveness. What are we doing to ensure that whatever is happening out there, remember logistics costs have gone up. The hire for containers, the need for containers has gone up. In the presentation that was made earlier by Nakutuza, the issue is globally. We do not understand why the global costs for even containers have gone up. It's because the demand is actually going up. A lot of people out there are sitting at home doing work from home, so they are actually improving the infrastructure within their homes. And there is need for a lot of these goods and services to move very from Asia to Europe. So when it comes to competitiveness, how much do we export? So we don't get a lot of containers being sent to our countries that we export 70% empties. How are we going to ensure that 70% empties that we exporting are actually being exported with cargo? That is the challenge that we have. And how do we facilitate this to ensure that even the facilities that we have within our country and the infrastructure that we have is actually promoting exports. So I would like to invite comments from all of you, even as we look into the challenges that we have, the real challenges that we have in the region, apart from the normal tariff and non-tariff barriers that we have. The issues of security. We are all aware of what has been happening in South Sudan. 3,000 plus trucks being held up there means containers are being held up there in those countries that are supposed to be going on in circulation globally, and therefore that increases the costs. When we talk about container deposits coming for containers that are coming into the region, and that's considered as one of the elements. Shipping lines will always increase the cost. And therefore, we must look at how do we build trust? How do we build global trust to be able to actually do some of the costs that are direct, whether they are based on bonds that are being given, the timelines that are being given by shipping lines, imposition of tariff of charges, by our regulators, just to ensure that business moves. The first thing we need to do is self-regulation. I think you talked about the self-regulation. We must be able to actually have a model of regulation, and the freight forwarders have actually driven that process. They are almost there. We need the support of EABC, EAC to actually support this process, to progress this into a law that now regulates our freight forwarding industry, and also regulates those others that offer the services to shippers, because shippers at the end of the day depend on your services. We depend on each other. Government depends on the shipper to be able to pay taxes so that they can be able to run and implement infrastructure projects that they're implementing. So I want to invite comments from the floor to be able to add into this discussion. So can I have, okay, just before that.
Thank you, moderator. I just wanted to put something straight, since my colleague has mentioned something as being ready with the issue of self-regulation. And we have FIEFA. UCIFA is not a member of FIEFA. And this program of self-regulation is being driven by FIEFA. And we as UCIFA were not participating in it fully because we are not members. Mr. Chairman, EABC and the CEO, I think I need to put this clearly to your attention, because maybe this issue has never come to you and you have not understood how we operate. And that's why you find when we come to meetings like this, you find FIEFA is invited separately and UCIFA is invited separately because of our contribution in the region. So we've tried as much as possible, as you are aware, we wanted to be members of FIEFA, but by the time FIEFA was formed, they formed it with one association in each country. And at that time, UCIFA was not involved in it. And up to today, they insist that that's the constitution. So it wouldn't be a right record to say that we are ready with the process of self-regulation. The discussions which are going on, UCIFA is not part of it. And the majority of the clearing firms in Uganda belong to UCIFA. So that's the problem. And like I mentioned at the beginning, we need to work as a EAC family. If FIEFA is a regional association, why shouldn't it have all members in the region? If there's why are we talking about amending the Customs Act? Why are we talking about amending the common external tariff? And I'm not talking about amending our own systems. It doesn't augur well. So I wanted to put that clear for your attention of Chairman and CEO and the membership. Thank you.
Thank you. And that I think we'll take it up with EABC. Let's talk the voice of private sector. Private sector faces challenges. I think it's not individual. We have different institutions, but all of us must speak with one voice, and that is what we are looking for in this forum. I would like to invite now the other comments, even so that we get the responses. And please, as you make a comment, please introduce yourself, Panamboya. Yes.
Thank you very much for the very nice presentations. But I want to just make a comment that in real life, you cannot plant avocado and expect sukuma wiki. We are trying to do just that with the results that we have. Cannot compete the rest of the world because we are not investing in bringing up our systems from the bottom. I'm not talking about bottom up yet. I'm talking about our investment in educating the people whose this responsibility lies. What are we doing to develop our curriculum so that we can be as strong as accountants are, be as strong as marketers are, be as strong as lawyers are, so that we can participate in this very important area of business, not just of trade. Logistics and transport is the lifeblood of countries. That is a fact. But the concentration in education is elsewhere. And so, how do we expect to do this? Wananyarani, very good presentations, but who is going to support this within the chain? We have very poor level drivers. A driver can kill the supply chain. Fact. We must be able to develop curriculum that just does not recognize wheel spinners because they are not wheel spinners. I'm just giving drivers as an example. The driver today is not a wheel spinner. The driver today is a custodian of resources and must think about his time, must think about customer service, must think about all those issues that save us time within the chain. Because the assets that the driver holds cost money. When I spend 5 hours, when 30 minutes should have done, the opportunity cost lost is bigger than the investment that I'm putting in. And this, all the people within the chain have to have a culture change, including KRA, who keeps my refunds for a month when a day would do it. Kills my business. KRA should be an enabler. Where are these people trained so that that culture is infused in them? By the time they are at KRA, at whatever level, they are able to deliver some of these issues almost naturally. I want to give lawyers, for example. A lawyer who qualifies from the university and the school of law is good enough to speak the language, live the language, wake up the language, and generally participate as a lawyer. We must be able to produce logistics and transport professionals able to think, live, have the culture, have the blood, doing all these nice things that we are saying. And all the people who are speaking are over 55. In another 10 years, what's going to happen? Marian, you spoke very well, Chairman. I listened to you very keenly. You touched the very important areas. Who is going to do it in the next 10 years? Are we producing them? No. You look at the curriculum of logistics and transport from any university, it is all finance, it's all economics, very important, but it's all finance and marketing, part of logistics, but it doesn't go down there. There are initiatives, but they're just scratching the skin of this very important area. I would want a situation where in the next 5 to 10 years, logistics professionals from year 1 of diploma or certificate program speaks, lives, acts, then we will be able to match the world like they do elsewhere. This is what I'm asking us to do. I don't know who has the magic wand to do it.
Thank you. Thank you. Can I have
Yeah, thank you very much, moderator. I think the previous participant raised the important question: who is going to do it? Maybe it's the question also I need to put across to Dr. Miriam in terms of sustainability of interventions. We talk a lot, and again, we are stakeholders, but we need resources. How do we generate and consolidate the resources? EABC, KPA, FAIRPA, maybe we have a pooled fund together that will enable us to drive this agenda. So wanted maybe Dr. Miriam to comment on that, and Omar, how do we use our resources we generate to support these interventions?
Thank you. Like I said, Gilbert is a living testimony of professionalism in the freight logistics industry.
Thank you.
Mr. Auni here has been president of the regional body, Federation of East African Freight Forwarders, associations from the 6 countries. And myself, I have also been the president and founder. I have been a founder member of the Uganda Freight Forwarders Association, then the Federation at East African level, but not before I made sure that each and every country in ESC had an association so that we come together and we develop something for the region. Mr. Mboya, I want to put your fears to rest. We have prepared, like I said, we are prepared. We developed a curriculum for customs agents and freight forwarders first, because that was the most chaotic and most fragmented and most disorganized practice in the region, in the private sector, I believe, because the names were, they are thieves, they are unscrupulous, they are all sorts of names. But we came in and we tried to professionalize. That's why I talked, we are ready because of professionalism. So we developed a curriculum for training customs agents and freight forwarders together, all the 5 countries then, plus East African community. And the person who was at the helm of it, Mr. Langati, if you remember, he used to teach at the
Analo.
And Mr. Nalo was teaching customs agents, customs officers for a very long time. However, when I was talking and I brought out the idea of domestic direct investment, I'll tell you what happened. Mr. Mboya, we were looking for that professionalism. We went to the Federation of International Freight Forwarders Associations to borrow their diploma to come and use it here for our curriculum and teach, and they were very mean with it. I'm one of the 15 people that trained as a trainer of trainers for the region, but even then they were not supportive enough. And one time I went for the World Congress, and I told them the truth. I said, you know what, guys, we have this curriculum, your curriculum. You have refused to cooperate with us. We shall go back home, customize it, make it our very own. And that's what we took to ESC, worked with ESC, developed it. That's what is being taught. When I said we have the critical mass to handle professionally all cargo in East Africa, I'm talking about training with that international diploma. But we called it another name because they didn't want to cooperate. And guess what? Thereafter, they cooperated. They even come to our countries to work with us to certify to see how we are working. So, Mr. Mboya, we are ready. When you talk about the driver, that was now we finished customs agents and freight forwarders. We certify and we register. PIAFA certifies and registers. And to answer Lino's, when we develop a curriculum at ESC, it's not for association members only. It's for the industry. If you want to teach it even in South Africa, you can take it and teach it. It's a public document. We only certify those who are going to teach it to the institutions. We are now talking to the Makerere Business School to teach our curriculum that we developed. So now we developed another curriculum for drivers with ESC. We have, I said, we have an MOU with East African Community. We had sought to have an MOU with the Directorate of Customs and Trade and Directorate of Infrastructure. However, we were advised by the Director of Customs and Trade to sign with the Secretary General. So we have a fully operating memorandum of understanding with the Secretary General representing the whole of ESC to train drivers. Now, what we haven't started doing is certifying them because there are two things missing. Uganda is always the leading example. In Uganda, but Kenya, I think, has it. In Uganda, what is missing is the testing, the professional drivers testing, electronic, whatever you call them, the digital ones, not the physical ones sit behind a wheel, no. So we have a driver's curriculum approved by East African Community and being taught now. And because of oil in Uganda, the oil companies have become interested and they are supportive and funding. And I think in Uganda, we have certified 6,000, in the last 1 year, 6,000 professional drivers, especially heavy goods drivers. Although we would like to start it from even the small cars and teach up to that level. So I think we are covered. George, if you are not satisfied, we can discuss later.
Thank you, Marian.
Maybe, Gilbert, if I may, I just wanted to add that this curriculum was developed along with all the region's revenue authorities. There is still in place a curriculum implementation committee which still oversees the continuous revision of this document. So it's been that, and maybe going back to the fact that whether this curriculum or whether the draft model regulation that we developed as FIAFA, remember it was not only FIAFA in those sessions, because I attended all the sessions in Uganda, in Rwanda, in Burundi, in Tanzania, and these sessions were attended by all the stakeholders, including all the country's revenue authorities, lawyers, and other stakeholders. So, my friend, it's not only for USIFA or UFA or KIFWA or TAPWA or whoever it is meant for the whole industry as a unit. So thank you, Gilbert.
And the bill, when I say the model bill, it's a law at ESC. They have adopted a model bill, but countries are slow taking them on to enact the profession by act of parliament. So it's being discussed in each country. I think Rwanda has already made an act out of the model bill from ESC. Kenya, what the problem is here, why we said we should do public-private dialogue formally and structurally, is in Kenya, when it came out, it was fought by the Revenue Authority because the Revenue Authorities don't want freight forwarders and customs agents to do self-regulation. They want to keep regulating them. But what George is talking about here, the lawyers, the accountants, they are self-regulating. And that's where we are taking this industry to be self-regulating as well. Thank you.
Moderator, just give me a minute. At the higher level, we did an audit for the Northern Corridor member countries to see how much resource we have in terms of transport economists, and port experts, and the transport engineering. Because to make the corridor efficient, we need such resource. What we found out is that apart from Kenya, which has a lot of heavy in terms of port experts, these other countries like South Sudan, which are supposed to even develop the river transport, don't have any. Even transport economists, even in Kenya, you can count with fingers. So we have gotten approval from our board and member countries that we start running a program for the next 6 years, targeting one person per member country to do such a program at master's level. We will be going around in these countries to identify, and the qualification is they have to be less than 30 years, because we realized even the expertise we have in countries are all aging, so we don't have replacement. So that's what we are doing as Northern Corridor. Thank you.
Thank you, Bwana Nyirandi, and I want to support what he's saying. Yes, the Executive Committee of Northern Corridor did approve that we actually look into the capacity that we have existing in these countries, and we will be pushing that agenda. We have representation of private sector in the region. Currently, the chair of the PPP committee, which is a public partnership committee of Northern Corridor, sits in the executive committee. Kenya now chairs that committee. Rwanda, which is public sector, chairs for the next 2 years, then it changes to Rwanda. So we have representation, and I think private sector have an avenue to be able to progress some of these discussions. I will be talking to the national institutions that oversight private sector to be able to actually have these engagements. I think we need to progress our engagement as one voice of private sector to be able to do this. I want to have two comments before we take it back